Hey y'all, it's your girl, Hope, your TV movie bestie, and I watch good shit, and let's get into Memory of a Killer. All right, so we're back this week with episode 7. Last week we had a break. This week opens with Angelo at the hospital, and he is like getting an experimental treatment. So he is trying to get his memories back, or get memories, or locate memories, anything to do with memories. So he puts on this little headset, he goes into a memory, and he is having a memory, but he's also having like other experiences, like it feels very real, like he is in the moment. And so he starts freaking out and he just gets up and he leaves. So then we go to Detective Woods and Jeff. Okay, remember Jeff had hired this PI and they found this button, and so they take it to Detective Woods. And Detective Woods is like, okay, this is good, but y'all didn't go about it in the right way. There's a chain of command. And since y'all violated that, we probably can't use this as evidence. And they're like, but it's still helpful. Like, this is a clue. And so he's like, yeah, it's a clue. So as Jeff is leaving, he sees the guy who killed Maria's mom, Angelo's wife, in the police station. And he's like, what's he doing here? And so the PI guy is like, he probably just, checking in with his parole officer. And so Jeff's like, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. So, okay, we go to Angelo. And Angelo is now trying to track the ferryman. So he meets up with Wesley and he gives Wesley a tracker. And he's like, look, on your next run of delivery to the ferryman, put this tracker in and I'll be able to track him. And Wesley's like, bruh, I can't be involved. And he's like, look, I just make deliveries. I'm just trying to keep my job. And Angelo's like, don't worry, like you're gonna be good. Like just do it for me and I got your back. And Wesley's like, all right. So he does it. Okay, so Angelo then goes to Dutch because while he was in this very intense memory, he was having a memory of a prior kill of this scientist, Dr. Parks. And so Dutch is like, do you remember this guy? He's been in the news lately. I've been thinking about him a lot. He said, what he said to me before I killed him was, whoever sent you here is lying to you. And so he said, at the time I thought it was just him trying to save himself, but now I don't know. And so Dutch is like, whoa, look, we don't ask questions. And he's like, you especially don't ask questions. And Dutch is like, but why did we kill him? Like, are we sure? Because we usually don't go after civilians. And Dutch is like, no, look, stop. Just let this go. This happened like 2 years ago. It's over. It's done. We got paid. Everything is good. Like, let it go. And so Dutch is like, okay. So, it's Angelo is clearly not going to let it go, but Dutch is like, maybe he will. So now we go to Maria. Okay, so Maria, she's hiding her gun. She goes to yoga. Guess who at yoga? Nicky. So she's in the bathroom and Nicky brings her like a cup of water. And I said, whoa, girl, y'all know me. I don't trust nobody. So you don't know this lady? Why are you taking water from her? Why are you taking anything from her? I'd have been like, thanks, but no thanks. And also she gives you a glass of water and she drinking out of a bottle of water. If I didn't open it, I don't drink it from strangers. I'm like, Maria, come on. So anyways, it turned out to be nothing. I thought Nicky was going to try to drug her or something, or she was trying to get her DNA from some, my mind be somewhere else. So it was really nothing. But Nicky got her talking about Angelo and how she's thinking about naming the baby after him. And so, they're really friendly. And Maria's like, am I going to see you again? And she's like, yeah. The torture has just begun. Now she talking about yoga, but I said, y'all better watch y'all back because Nicky's not to be trusted. Okay, so then we go to Detective Woods. So he's got the button. He knows it's a clue. He gives it to his partner and he's like, see if you can match up these fibers. So she's like, And so they both make note of the fact that this is a very expensive piece of clothing that these fibers and this button came off of. And if somebody lived in this town that could afford this kind of clothing and was wearing this kind of clothing, wouldn't they be sticking out like a sore thumb? Because Hudson is not a, flashy, showy town. So they make a note of that. Then we go to Angelo. He meets up with Joe. So when he goes to pick up Joe, we meet his father. Now, Joe's father is a complete asshole. Like, he's just going on about his son lazy and he's stupid and, he ain't got no good job and all this. And so Angelo's like, actually, he's very smart and he does a lot of stuff that other people can't do. And so you want a gambler and you owe Dutch $40,000. So look like you the only stupid one here. And I was like, I know that's right, because dang, this your son and you just going on about him like that? So Joe pops up in the back. He is like, hey, Angelo, like, I'm ready to go now. And so I thought this was such a great moment for Joe, because throughout the whole show, Joe is like always looking for validation. I think it's clear that he won't get that from his father, but he seems particularly interested in getting that from Dutch and Angelo. So the fact that Angelo was defending him and, really going up against his father over him in support of Joe when Joe wasn't even around, which speaks to how Angelo really feels about him. I thought that was such a defining moment for Joe to witness that. So I love that for him. Okay, so they get in the car, they go. Next, we go back to Detective Woods, and his partner is like, yep, the buttons and the fibers, they match. And I've tracked it down to 3 shops in New York that designers, make these suits. And so Detective Woods is like, all right, we getting somewhere. And he's like, okay, this is very good. So Joe starts, back to Joe and Angelo. So Joe is investigating the scientist because, like I said, supposedly he was killed because he was a terrorist. So Joe is like, I can't find no evidence that he's an actual terrorist or that he was an actual terrorist. And so Angelo's like, see, I knew something ain't right about this. And he's like, we're going to have to go back to where everything occurred and see what we're missing. And Joe's like, go back to the scene of the crime. Like, that's the one thing we never do. But okay. So they go back, and then we start to see Angelo's memory of, what happened when he killed the scientist, all this stuff. So as he is remembering this, right before Angelo kills the scientist, Dr. Parks says, Gilchrist sent you, didn't she? And so at the time, Dutch was like, I don't know what you're talking about. He just, went ahead and killed him. So as he's having this memory, his phone starts going off. So it's the tracker that he gave to Wesley to put in the ferryman's delivery. So he's like, oh, okay, cool. And so Joe's like, what's going on? And he's like, just come with me. So they get to where the tracker is, and it's behind a door. They open the door. Here's Wesley, dead, stabbed in the chest with a note that says, hello, Angelo. And it's like, oh my gosh. So Angelo is like, damn it, Wesley, I was supposed to have your back. And I'm like, yeah, you did absolutely nothing to protect Wesley. So it's clear now that, like, the ferryman definitely knows that Angelo's coming for him. He's on his trail. Okay. So then we go to Angelo. He meets up with Dutch, and he's like, Dutch, who is Gilchrist? And so Dutch is like, who? I don't know what you're talking about. And so he tells him, this is what the scientist said before I killed him. And he's like, oh my gosh, you and the scientist still. And he's like, let it go. Just leave it alone. And so Angelo's like, I can't. He's like, so somebody's coming after us. It's somebody named the Ferryman, and it has to do with this case or this kill. And he's like, I cannot stop. I've got to get to the bottom of this. And so Dutch is like, okay, I guess. And so I knew right then that Dutch was letting on, not, Dutch knows something. Like I said right away, Dutch knows who Gilchrist is, and I just don't trust Dutch. Like, I want to believe that Dutch and Angelo really are friends and Dutch has his back, but I just don't. I think at the end of the day, Dutch would sacrifice Angelo in a minute. Like, so more episodes we get into, I don't trust Dutch, and I don't know what he's up to, but I think he definitely knows way more about a lot of things than he's letting on. And I'm a little scared. I'm a little scared for Angelo. Okay, so let's go to Maria. Okay, so she is getting her cable fixed, repaired, something. I said, who got cable in 2026? Anyway, so she's getting that repaired, and guess who is one of the repairmen? The same man killed her mama. I said, oh no. So he's in her nursery looking around, and she's like, what the hell? And so he's like, oh, I ain't doing that. I'm just here to fix the cable. And she's like, get out, get out. And he was like, I'm not trying to hurt you. And she's like, get out. So, he leaves, and he's like, I'll see you around. And I was like, that was so ominous and scary. So she goes to the police station, and she's trying to get like a restraining order or whatever. And so Detective Woods is like, he really do work for that company, and he didn't threaten you, so we really can't do nothing. And she's like, ugh, okay. So Detective Woods is like, but I got some information for you. And so he tells her about the button, the fibers, the suit, and how they've narrowed it down to 3 shops in New York. And so she's looking at it, and she said, yeah, I think this is probably not the lead you're hoping for. And so he's like, why do you say that? And she said, well, this name right here, I know this designer. She's like, he makes stuff for my dad. And he said, for your dad? And she's like, yeah. And obviously my dad's not wearing, $10,000 suits. And, he's just a regular old guy. And so Detective Woods is like, okay, yeah, you're right. So, she gets on out of there. Then we go to Nicky and Angelo. So they're having dinner, and Nicky, she notices that Angelo's kind of like distracted. And so she says, are you worried about the baby? Maria? And Angelo said, what now? And she's like, are you worried about them? Like, I think they're fine. And she's like, I think it's nice that she wants to name the baby after you. And Angelo's just like, how do you know about them? And she's like, are you serious? Like, you just been talking about them all through dinner. And he's just like, oh, yeah, right. And I knew. I said, Nicky lying. Like, Nicky is playing these mind games. And again, I don't trust her. So Angelo's like, okay, cool. So next scene, again, I'm right. Dutch meets with Gilchrist. And so Gilchrist, she said, this is a woman, and she says was in the middle of congressional hearings. So obviously she's somebody pretty important. And so he's like, look, what you know about the Ferryman and Angelo and coming for him? And she's like, what? She's like, look, we had business 2 years ago. Our business is done. You need not call me anymore. You were paid. We're finished. And so he's like, yeah, but Angelo is not. And so she's like, well, sound like you got a staffing problem. She's like, you better get Angelo in check or my people will. And we have way more creative ways than anything you can imagine. And so Dutch is like, well, I wouldn't get too creative because Dutch is not the problem. It's not Dutch. Angelo is not the problem. He is the solution. And if you get too creative, he will show you why I've kept him around for 30 years. And so she's just kind of like, So that ends. So then we go back to Nicky, who again, I'm right. Don't trust that hoe. Nicky is meeting up with this dude that killed Maria's mama, Angelo's wife. And this dude is, so Nicky is like, look, I met with the daughter. I think she's starting to trust me. I'm going to get to know her a little bit better. Angelo, I've been all up in his head. He don't know what end is up. And I said, see, I knew she was lying. She making Angelo think he crazy. Gaslighting at its finest. And she's like, look, you tell the ferryman that once all this is over, our business is done, my debt is paid, and I'm out. And he's like, all right, cool. And I'm just like, who is the ferryman? Y'all, I have no clue who the ferryman is, and it's driving me crazy. Like, I can't even imagine who it could be. Like, what y'all think about that? Do y'all know the ferryman? What kind of theories y'all got? Okay, so the last little scene is Angelo. He's back at the hospital, and poor thing, he's just like, I can't even remember basic conversations no more. And he's like, so this thing is really taking over, and I'm willing to do any and everything to get back to myself. And so, the doctor's like, all right, let's go. But y'all know we can't trust the doctor because him and Nicky working together. So I'm like, ooh. All right. So that's episode 7, y'all. This thing is getting good. I have no idea who the ferryman is. I don't trust Nicky. I don't trust Dutch. I'm also scared for Angelo because I think they're getting really close to piecing together that he's the one who killed this dude. And I don't want him to get caught up in that. But anyway, what y'all think? You know the deal. Like, subscribe, follow. I'm on all the socials, your TV movie bestie. And I will see y'all for episode 8. Bye, besties.